Today we will be having a very exciting conversation on the topic, is India's digital infrastructure aligned to catapult us into a coveted 5 trillion economy? I request everyone to kindly be seated as we will be beginning with the event very shortly.
Distinguished guests, delegates, and esteemed audience members, I, Ayushi Dhengula, and my co-host Sarang Prakash welcome you all to this electrifying session on the power of technology in shaping India's economic future. I now request our esteemed guests, Mr. Mohit Joshi and Mr. Siddharth Zarabi, to join us on the dais.
Mr. Mohit Joshi is the Managing Director and CEO Designate, Tech Mahindra. With over 2 decades of rich experience in enterprise technology and consulting, Mr. Joshi has traversed an illustrious career path, leaving an indelible mark across the largest corporations worldwide.
Beginning his journey with ANZ Grindlays and ABN AMRO Bank, Mr. Joshi's career trajectory continued to soar at Infosys, where he spearheaded global financial services and software businesses. His notable leadership encompassed transformative initiatives including Finacle, the groundbreaking banking platform, and innovative automation portfolios.
Notably, Mr. Joshi's achievements extend beyond corporate realms. His recognition as the young global leader at the World Economic Forum in 2014 underscores his exceptional contributions to shaping the global business landscape.
Mr. Joshi is a lifelong learner. He started his journey with a history degree from St. Stephen's. Then he pursued an MBA from FMS, and most recently, he even tackled Harvard's Global Leadership and Public Policy program.
Today, Mr. Joshi stands at the helm of Tech Mahindra as the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer Designate, steering the company towards unparalleled growth and digital transformation. His leadership ethos emphasizes thinking beyond boundaries, nurturing talent, and creating environments that foster innovation and progress.
Mr. Joshi's unwavering commitment to excellence, coupled with his vision for a future fueled by innovation, truly makes him a beacon of inspiration for us all. I now request Mr. Siddharth Zarabi to present a bouquet to Mr. Mohit Joshi. Mr. Siddharth Zarabi, the moderator for today's session, is the managing editor of Business Today TV.
We now request Mr. Zarabi to take over the conversation on the topic, is India's digital infrastructure aligned to catapult us into a coveted 5 trillion economic league?
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to day 2 of the Zero Mile Samvad. It's an absolute privilege to be joined by the MD and CEO designate of Tech Mahindra, a company with almost 148,000 employees, and you can imagine the kind of impact it has. Mohit, they have introduced you, and I want to come to the topic straight away, which is India's digital infrastructure. It's actually the digital public infrastructure, something that was called the India Stack. And we saw at the G20 event how very soon the DPI will now be a global phenomenon. There are 8 or 10 MOUs, almost 30 countries that are interested. And I want to begin this conversation today by getting the audience to hear your thoughts about how significant the DPI infrastructure and what it was built on, and the future possibilities that exist in taking forward not only India's and Bharat's digital dream, but that of across the globe.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. And first, before I start, I must say it truly is a privilege to be here. I wanted to thank CP and the faculty of IIM Nagpur for inviting me over here. And this is my first time just seeing the campus, right? And it's just incredible. It's incredible the infrastructure that we're building in our country. It's incredible the educational institutions we're creating. It's incredible that the opportunities that will be there for all of you in the future. So let me just congratulate you and commend you on building truly a world-class institution here in the very heartland of the country.
Well, that's absolute a fact. I think everyone who's come here for the first time, and that includes me yesterday, I was completely blown away by the campus, and more importantly, the open space, the accessibility, and I imagine the kind of student interaction that would be possible in such a campus. But let's come to the point.
Yes, that's look, I think it's a very good question, because I feel that the whole concept of a digital public infrastructure has really caught the imagination of thinkers and doers the world over. I think first of all, what it is that, if you think about it, right, digital public infrastructure was not a word you heard even a decade ago, right? It is something very new, and I think a lot of the credit should go to India and to the government of India for really creating this concept. And in creating this concept, I think the whole idea was to, and it was a thought-through thing, right? It wasn't something that, that we stumbled into. It was built on a fairly strong foundation, and the initial foundation obviously was biometric identity. And then you use identity to build multiple layers on the stack. But the thinking was always there from the start. So I think the first thing that we have to commend people is for the quality of the vision. And I think Nandan Nilekani has said this before, that what digital public infrastructure requires is not deep pockets. It requires deep conviction. And I think that conviction and that original driving vision was there from the start. And I think that was a unique differentiator, right? Now you've got this vision and you've got the building blocks of, biometric identity. And then layering on, consent, layering on payments, layering on education. I think these are all layers that are significantly value-adding, and I have no doubt that it will continue to expand, right? It will continue to expand further and further into the future, to take maybe elements of security, additional elements of education, of transportation, to provide those facilities. So that's the vision and the expansion of the vision. But also the way the stack has been constructed, right, I think shows a remarkable degree of, of understanding and, future-proofing. If you think of it, at the base of it are the sort of very robust technical standards that have been released, right? And right from the beginning, the thinking always was very future-focused. So if you think about biometric identity, and you think about the fact that iris scanners and fingerprint scanners were being used at a time when these things were a lot more expensive than they are today. But the thinking at that time already was that because the Apple iPhone had introduced fingerprint scanners, and because iPhone cameras and digital phone cameras were becoming a lot more common, the view was that scanning would become cheap as chips, and that realization had come true. If it had not come true, if that thinking had not been there, the confidence would not have been there to have, retina scanners and fingerprint scanners, because they were very, very expensive and not as portable as they are today. But that's just the physical infrastructure, right? Even the technical infrastructure, the standards that were laid out, right? I remember that, Aadhaar was using Hadoop clusters when these were unknown of or unheard of even in the commercial world. So The quality of the underlying technical stack was very robust. But beyond, the technical stack was the question of governance, right? How will this be governed? And there were some very fundamental questions that need to be answered when you're looking at digital public infrastructure. And some of these questions are very controversial, like who will have access? Does access depend on citizenship or does access depend on residency, right? And all these complex questions had to be answered in the context of an infrastructure which really changes hands every time a government changes, right? So the robustness of the governance has meant that we are not worried now about government changes and the infrastructure being disbanded. But I think the third leg was also equally important. So we've got technical infrastructure, you've got governance, and beyond that is a vision of engaging markets. Because we don't want this to be a government program only, right? If at the end of the day, UPI was only about sending money to the government or one government department transferring money to the other, it would still have had value, but very limited value compared to what it's had. Because at the heart of it, it has recognized the role of markets in building that infrastructure. So, a mixture of technical standards, of governance and of markets, and also having a forward-looking vision of what can be accomplished, I think is what has made this the resounding success that it is today.
Absolutely. I think when India's IT industry started taking off many decades ago, no one would have imagined that in 2009, a series of numbers on a paper, and remember the debate around that time where some people said, what is the need for this? You already have multiple databases of various consumers, so this is going to intrude into privacy, and that debate is perhaps a separate one, but look at how India's IT industry, governance, the governments of the day have come together to create something that is very, very world-class, and all companies have a role to play in this, and it's open source, and I think one of the finest moments for India to be proud of leveraging its strong IT infrastructure. Mohit, I want to also recount for our audience what Bill Gates said about the entire DPI infrastructure, and said that what has happened in just a few years is completely remarkable. And the Bank of International Settlements, in fact, said that it would have taken close to 5 decades for what has been done in 6 years. So please be proud of the fact most of you are young students who are going to embark on a career. Mohit, since we have primarily an audience of students and of course all those who are watching us live, the IT industry is navigating a complex shift in the global environment. It's also navigating a shift in technologies. Where does India's IT industry stand today? Because we have seen various phases in its evolution, but going forward 2022, 24 onwards, what are the newer things and innovations that we are likely to see which will contribute to the overall economic GDP growth plans that we have for the country?
Sure. So look, I think the IT services industry is unique in the sense that every couple of years people write its obituary. So, when I joined the industry back in 2000, people told me that, and I left banking to join IT services. People said, you shouldn't join. The Y2K wave is over. This industry is going to die. Then after that, we had 9/11 happening, and obviously you had, fairly significant restrictions on people movement in the US, which was and remains the largest market. Then you had the financial crisis, which people said would upend the industry. And then obviously you had, the agile revolution, you had COVID. So every couple of years, an intelligent commentator will write the fact that the IT services industry is dead and that India will have to find something else to do. But remarkably, despite all the prognostications of doom, this industry has grown at a healthy double-digit over time. And, as they say, right, there's a very famous saying in the markets that pessimists sound smart, optimists make money, right? And that is the truth of this business, right? That, you have to be optimistic, you have to grab the opportunity. I can spell out what the scale of the industry will be right now. Exactly what its components will be or who will win or who will lose is hard for me to say beyond the fact that TechM will obviously be one of the winners. But thank you. If I look at the industry overall, it is driven by the fact that there is an incredible shortage of engineering talent and of technology talent the world over. The total number of programmers in this world is only about 5 or 6 million. The demand for programming talent is not going to reduce over time, regardless of what an AI will do. The role of a programmer or the role that the person plays or the role that technology talent plays will evolve over time. And I do feel that we have a business, an IT services business, which is maybe $250 to $300 billion roughly in terms of size. And I do feel that there is the opportunity, to take this to 500 billion, right, is the estimate that Morgan Stanley had most recently submitted by the early 2030s. Actually, they've said 2030 itself, which would mean that we will continue to have a double-digit CAGR over the next 7 years. And we see several things that are driving this, this investment in technology, right? For one, industries are being completely transformed by technology. All telecom companies are looking to become telco to techco, right? Every single bank thinks of itself now as a balance sheet and a platform. Healthcare is increasingly getting digitized. So every single industry is being transformed by technology. And so therefore, the conversation in the boardrooms is increasingly about technology, and the proportion of the spend, the proportion of the revenue that goes to technology is increasing. So when I started my career in IT services, for instance, banks would typically spend between 1 to 2% of their revenue on technology. And the sort of the technology department was still sometimes called the EDP department or the MIS department. And if you look at it now, if you look at banks now, banking CEOs don't talk about anything else except technology, right? You read any analyst minutes, you read any, presentation to Wall Street. It is all about how banks are now, how JP Morgan is now a technology company and how Barclays is now a technology company, right? So the transformation of industries is one piece. And I think the second piece has to do with the fact that we are still at the very early stages of a technology revolution, right? If you think about it, and I think it just goes to show how much we take for granted. All of, if you think of it in sort of broader terms, right? If you think of it, the universe is over 14 billion years old. The Earth is, maybe 4.3 billion years. All of humanity, all of our species is probably under 50 to 100,000 years old. All of written history is only 5,000 years. The technology revolution, really, the semiconductor revolution is only since the 50s or the 60s. And you look at it, the dramatic pace of change that has happened over the past 10 years. I think in the next 10 years, we will be seeing a decade's worth of change every single year. And it'll be driven by, by artificial intelligence. It'll be driven by the advances we're seeing in genomics, be driven by the advances we're seeing in nanotechnology, by the advances that we're seeing in robotics. And all of these are coming together in a way that they didn't in the past, right? And all of this will require a human in the loop, will require, deep technical and deep business expertise, which is what institutions like IIM Nagpur are going to build. So I feel very optimistic about the industry in the long run. And I feel very optimistic because of the caliber of the talent, of the human talent that we are creating in this country, not just technical talent, but also business talent and creative talent.
You've given us a couple of cues for a much broader set of questions, but I want to pick up two of them. You spoke about the demand for programming talent and the gap that exists, and also the impact of AI. This is primarily people who want to become managers, but what about the conversation that's happening in campuses all across the country right now? Placement season is not doing very well. IT industry, many companies have gone slow on fresh hiring post the COVID boom, and the often repeated statement that AI will make most if not all, programming jobs redundant. How would you respond to that, Mohit?
So look, I think AI will certainly make programming easier, right? And it will certainly make it more widespread. I don't believe it will make it redundant. But what it does, I believe it does something truly remarkable. It allows an average programmer to be at the level where the expert was only a short while back. So it's a dramatic boost in productivity. And at the end of the day, programming is about taking certain business logic, right, and applying it so that you're able to get a certain output. I mean, you can certainly do programming purely for pleasure, but most of the time you're looking to drive a business purpose. And my sense is that what this will require is that for people who are programmers to have a deeper sense of the business context and to align very closely with business, which is anyway what is happening with Agile as well. So I think the mix between the technical competencies required and the business and the creative competency required will shift, because a lot of the tooling will allow us to be a lot more efficient from a programming perspective. But the need for people, so I would go beyond programmers, right? I would say the need for people who understand technology and who understand business and can apply human creativity will never diminish, right? And if anything else, right? Look, AI will certainly create winners and losers, no doubt about it. But it will create a lot more winners than losers. And B, even for the losers, life will be a lot better than it was earlier. If you think about it today, even the person living in the, let's say, in the bottom quartile from from an economic perspective, has better access to medicines, better access to education, better access to, to healthcare and entertainment than the richest person 100 years ago. So, while it will create winners and losers, it will overwhelmingly benefit all of us.
And that's very important. I want to come to the AI possibilities that exist for Indian IT industry, but a quick follow-up. So what's happening on the manpower side across the Indian ITES sector, is that just a short-term blip, or do you expect that impact to last maybe a few more quarters?
No, I think, look, again, not even in the long run, right? In the medium run and in the long run, I'm very optimistic about the future of the IT services business, right? It will consistently grow, to my mind, at double digits for the next decade or so. And it will require, it will require a significant pool of talent, right? Now, will we see the same percentage acceleration that we were seeing in the 2000s? Maybe not, because you've got a much larger pool of existing talent that we have. Will it require people to have newer skills? For sure. But at the end of the day, this will be this will continue to be a growth business. This will continue to require, people with, with talent. And I just don't see the industry shrinking from a people perspective. Maybe the growth will be, will be slightly different, but the industry will be much larger in the future and will continue to require a ton of talent.
So all those programmers out there, and BTech Computer Science still is one of the most popular courses. Don't lose hope. Mohit Joshi is giving you a perspective which will allow you to continue with your career choice. Let's come to the broader question for the IT sector, Y2K and other movements, including, for example, what the Indian IT industry has done for the global banking and fintech sector, and we see fintech in India also. Is AI going to be an opportunity where Indian IT companies will lead, and what sort of role do you see Indian IT companies playing in the evolution of AI? We've seen the advances and the innovations. Again, they've largely been focused on just a small set of companies existing in the United States and elsewhere. What do you think Indian IT sector overall will do in the AI space?
Sure. So look, I think, it's a couple of things, right? The first is that the talent that we have built in India has played a remarkable role in building out a lot of these large language models, for instance, or the broader evolution of technology and the broader evolution of AI. Now, it is possible that many of the people who drove this transformation are carrying a Microsoft badge or are carrying a Google badge. but they are, part of the larger, talent pool that, that India has created, right? That's the first piece. I think the second piece is where the industry, where the IT services industry is currently playing a role, is to figure out the use cases for applying AI in in an enterprise context, right? Which is where I think the real need is. So you have a large language model. How do you use it for digital deflection, for instance, so that you have less calls coming to your contact center? You've got these AI models. How do you use it? For instance, one of the largest sources of expense for a telecom company is, the energy usage in the network. How are you able to drive down energy consumptions in networks by using AI? How are you able to reduce onboarding time and to reduce, fraud risk for financial institutions by using AI? So I believe that a lot of these use cases for, for AI will be built by Indian IT services companies. And I think the third step is, obviously, we have to invest in fundamental research, right? We have to invest in building out our own large language models. And I'm very proud of the fact that in TechM, for instance, through the Makers Lab and through the Indus initiative that CP himself had sponsored, we are building out the first large language model based on Indic languages in India. And just yesterday, we got very positive and very affirming news about how well the model is performing. So I think at the end of the day, a lot of investments will happen in building out, sort of fundamental research and model development for the next generation of models will happen from India. I mean, who knows? Maybe, the breakthroughs from a genetic engineering perspective or applying, biology to create the next generation of computers, maybe that will happen in India. We have to be, again, we have to be optimistic. We are right to be impatient, to want it today. But a lot of these things take time. And if you look at how far we have come from an industry perspective over the past 2 decades, there is no reason to believe that the future will not be equally promising.
In the Indian context, and you spoke about enterprise applications at the first stage, to your mind, what's the 1 or 2 examples that you feel where AI will have a massive impact on Indian life all across the board?
So look, I think, AI has already had a massive impact in banking, right? Or if you look at payments, or if you look at opening an account, anybody here, and there'll be very few people here who will remember trying to go to a bank to make a payment in the 80s or the 90s. It was impossible. Till the first decade of this century, the largest form of money transfer in this company was still happening through money orders, which are physical pieces of paper carried by postmen across the country, right? You think of that now, it's remarkable the change that has happened in such short order, where you have billions of transactions every single day. There are, I'm originally from Almora in Uttarakhand, right? And there are parts of Uttarakhand which may not have, let's say, running electricity or running water, but they still have UPI terminals, right? It is remarkable the change that has been happened from a payments perspective, but also a client onboarding perspective, right? Try and open an account in the UK with a bank. It'll take you a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks to go through the client onboarding and the KYC processes, things that take seconds over here, right? So the revolution, I think, in banking obviously has some ways to go.
That point certainly deserves that. Please continue.
Thank you. And I think these are still early days. We are seeing the creation of, the Indian economy still has very low credit availability for small businesses and for individuals. We will see a massive expansion of credit, for instance, based on the fact that we have a much deeper understanding of consumer behavior, a much deeper understanding of personal and enterprise credit risk, right? So the transformation of banking will continue. I believe that the transformation of education is something whose time has come, right? If we look at education, for instance, again, I think it is great for humans to come together in the context of a large institution like this one to learn. There is a level of certification and a level of credentialing that an organization like this does. But at the end of the day, learning journeys are also very individual. People learn at their own pace, and a curriculum and material must be crafted to each individual learner as well. And I think this is one place where an AI will have a very significant role to play. And again, it might sound like science fiction today, but the role of a AI tutor who starts teaching you at the age of 3 or 4 and stays with you through your lifetime, fully understands your personal learning journey, fully understands your strengths and weaknesses, and guides you in the right direction. So like an AI guru you get at birth, and that will take you through your own lifetime, I think is something which is going to happen in this decade, right? Let alone in this century. It's going to happen in this decade. So I think there's a transformation of education. There is a transformation of medicines, right? A lot of our medicines are still from the medieval ages, right? We are still taking aspirin, which is basically willow bark, right? It's willow bark that has been boiled. We are still taking quinine that was discovered in the 15th century, right? So the transformation of medicine, the transformation of surgery, these are all. In fact, I find it hard to think of an industry where we are not overdue a revolution.
There's so much more to discuss, but we are running out of time. But as we end this session, I want to ask, and I'm sure somebody in the audience must have this question in mind, a quick response from you. As you embark on leading Tech Mahindra, and as CP Gurnani hangs up his boots, what is your own agenda for this company that you have set for yourself?
So look, I think my first agenda, and again, very grateful to CP for just the incredible amount of support and affection I've had from him as I transition into this role. It is to first and foremost to secure the foundations of what has been built, brick by brick over the past 20 years by him. So make sure that the organization stays resilient and that we're able to meet the needs of our customers, for the future as well. But beyond that, we're working on a plan for growth. We're working on a plan to to look at our portfolio of offerings, to look at the markets in which we operate. We're working on a plan for margins, and we're working on a plan for the organization. So it's a very comprehensive plan that we're building, for the organization for the future. But again, resting on very strong foundations of incredible talent, an incredible client base, and an incredibly supportive group, right? The Mahindra Group is truly a remarkable group, and we have all these advantages in terms of talents, a client base, and a very supportive group. So again, as I keep saying, right, there's always things to be worried about today and tomorrow. But in the long run, right, if there's one thing you remember, please remember this: pessimists sound smart, but optimists make all the money.
Absolutely, optimists make all the money. Mohit Joshi, we wish you all the very best for a successful tenure. We are here in the town that has the 0 mile, and I know you have many, many miles to run, so we wish you all the best for a great run ahead. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for a lovely conversation. Thank you, Siddharth.
I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to this amazing panelists for their insightful and engaging discussions today.
I would now like to request Mr. Siddharth Zarabi to present Mr. Joshi with a memento. We at IIM Nagpur strongly believe in creating a sustainable environment. Thus, it is our tradition to present our guests with a unique living and breathing gift that reflects our ethos. Sir, a tree has been planted in your name in Simlipal National Park, Odisha, as a part of the Trees for Tiger program. The certificate will be mailed to you shortly.
Thank you.
We would like to extend our thanks to the ZMS team for the seamless organization and execution of this event. We would also like to thank our esteemed dignitaries for gracing the occasion with their presence. We would also like to take this moment to thank our sponsors, Ahluwalia Contracts India Limited, Sustainable Energy Partner, Indian Oil, Bronze Partner, AWS, Media Partner, Tech Mahindra Presents Business Today, Gifting Partner, Boat, Exclusive Radio Partner, Red FM 93.5, Bajate Raho, Digital and Creative Partner, Buffalo Soldiers, and other summit partners, Spacefood, Infinity, Fugo, Royal Safe Company, Sirocco, and Engineers India Limited.
We would also like to inform everyone that please be seated on your places. We'll be starting with the next session just in a few minutes.